Welcome to Backwoods Pursuit. I'm Gabe Garish, and today we're going to be taking a look at Digiscoping adapters for your spotting scope. I've got 7 different options here from 5 different companies. We're going to go over some of the details and differences between these, and I'm going to give you 5 key things to consider when you're looking at Digiscoping adapters or phone scope adapters, phone scope mounts, whatever you want to call them. There's a lot of different names for them, but 5 key things that you want to consider and look at when you're deciding what's going to be best for your specific situation to help you find the best Digiscoping adapter for your particular setup and needs. Put links to all these down in the description, as well as a link to our website and social media channels. Go check those out. Lots of gear reviews over there. But let's dive into Digiscoping adapters. All right, to get started, let's take a look at these 7 options we have and then we're going to talk about in this video. First up, we have ScopeCam. It comes in both a universal clamp style option as well as one that is more specific to your actual phone. You have, we have here Onglass, then we have MagView as well. We've got the all-in system, and then we have a couple of phone scope systems. They have actually a couple combinations here that work out to a number of options here. You've got the lollipop looking universal clamp there, and then the universal eyepiece here that can be used on just about or most of your optics out there. And then we also have the phone specific option with the spotting scope specific option as far as the adapter piece. So that can have a number of different combinations, but for purposes of this, we're counting that as 2 options. So that's the 7 that we've got here in this video to discuss. Now, for the first important thing to consider when we're looking at Digiscoping adapters is how it attaches to the spotting scope, as well as how it attaches to the phone and how quick that is to do those sorts of things. So first up, the ScopeCam. This is the eyepiece right here, the eyepiece adapter, and it's separated into 2 sections on the eyepiece here, and you hold one and screw the other on to either tighten or loosen it. So in this case, you'll go ahead and tighten this, hold the lower section and screw that down until it clamps on to the eyepiece. So it's pretty quick, pretty fast, but it doesn't stay on the optic like some of the other ones. Next, you've got the Onglass here. The Onglass system is unique in that you have an inner section here that attaches to the green outer section, and then that lines up here and then connects together. Now, the intersection here can be used for a range of sizes, but it's a pretty small range, so they have a whole bunch of these that you pick from. So you can use one system here and then buy a couple of these intersections to go with whatever spotting scope you have, or if you have a number of spotting scopes, you can pick up a couple of these. That part is really nice. So this just attaches here like this. You line up the detent there and then click it on there, and then you go ahead and just slide it onto the spotting scope, and it comes off and on really, really easily. It has some tension on the inside there, and it gives you that little bit of a range of what it'll fit on versus an exact fit like the all-in system does that we'll show you in a minute here. So it's a nice system, and it gives you a lot of flexibility. It's not universal necessarily, but it can be used with just about anything just by switching out that inner section. Where I forgot to mention that the ScopeCam adapter here is universal for the most part. It'll fit on just about every spotting scope out there because of the way that attaches and screws down, tightens onto the eyepiece. The MagView here is a universal system. You put this onto, of course, your spotting scope, and then this opens up. You've probably seen the videos out there. And then the magnetic here I got on my phone just goes on there and snaps onto the magnet there. So that one is universal, and the way that it's universal, it's got all these different sizing pieces that come with it, which affects not only the inner size here, but then also the space from the eyepiece. So if you have different eye relief for different spotting scopes, it allows you to make that adjustment. That's how that one attaches. Now the attachment here for the MagView, or I'm sorry, not the MagView, this is the all-in. You have to order the specific eyepiece for the actual spotting scope that you're going to be using. This one actually does fit the koa here, and you just push it on there, slide it on there. It's a very snug fit, and it does actually leave some marks on the eyepiece rubber. It doesn't bother me, but some folks might not like that. And then you've got the cover that is magnetic as well. And then you can take that off and on, but this actually can be used with the spotting scope so you don't have to be taking that off when you're using the spotting scope, although you can, and it's very easy to do. You can slide that in your vinyl harness or whatnot, but it comes off and on real easily. Now the phone scope here has a couple of different options here. You've got a universal eyepiece and a fitted eyepiece. So if you have a specific spotting scope, I very much prefer the fitted if possible, and it just slides right on there. It comes off and on real easily that way. Then with either of those, you can either use the universal lollipop looking deal here that can be used with just about any phone out there, or you can order your exact phone case, which is what this is. So you're going to have the best fit if you use the phone case that you want to use and the specific eyepiece for your exact spotting scope. And if you do that, you can just slide it on there off and on pretty quick and easy. So those are the options. That's the way that these attach. And there's certainly pros and cons to each of these. Now another piece to this is whether or not these eyepieces are self-aligning with the optic. It makes a big difference in how fast you can acquire the target and start filming or taking pictures. Any of the universal pieces are not self-aligning, that being the ScopeCam universal, the MagView universal, and then the universal piece here for the phone scope. Those are not self-aligning. The other ScopeCam here, where you use the phone case, and this other piece here in their kit, that is self-aligning. The Onglass is self-aligning as well. All in is self-aligning. And then the phone scope here with the specific phone adapter, that one is self-aligning no matter which, whether you use the universal eyepiece or the fitted eyepiece. Those are all self-aligning there. So to me, it makes a big difference in what I'm going to select here, because it does make a big difference in how quickly you can get to filming or to taking pictures. All right, now important point number 2 for me at least is how easy is it to use and set up, and how fast can I get it set up so I can get that shot that I'm taking this out in the field to use. As a general rule here, anything that is universal, like the ScopeCam, the MagView, and then the universal piece from the phone scope, they just take quite a bit longer to get set up and to get the phone aligned and perfectly set up in there, because you're dealing with spring-loaded things like that, where you got to set the phone in there, or in this case, use the screw there to tighten your phone down. So they're just not really designed for that quick shot if you need to do that very quickly. Now, conversely, kind of an in-between here is the ScopeCam, because this eyepiece doesn't stay on the optic here. You still have to put it on there. So it does go on there very quickly when you get that set up, but you do have to still put that on, whereas some of the other ones are a little faster to put on. So this is kind of an in-between. Now the Onglass here is self-aligning, which makes a really big difference in the speed of getting set up. Now you can use this as something where you leave it on your spotting scope and just pull it out of your backpack with the adapter on there. You can also take the green section on the outside off of the intersection, and so you have less impedance on using the eyepiece there, or you can leave the whole thing together and pull it off and on. It goes on really quickly and easily, and it is fairly easy to set up whether or not you want landscape or portrait, if you're depending on what you're filming. And the nice thing about this one here, it is self-aligning, magnetic there, throw it on there and it lines perfectly every time. So it is very, very user-friendly that way. MagView here is also one that is magnetic, so that part is really nice, and it provides a cover for the optic here. You stick it on your optic and then fold it open, and provides that dust cover for the optic. Now this one is not self-aligning, and because of that, it does take a little bit more practice to get that perfect picture. I've left the MagView plate on the back of my phone because I really like that magnetic plate. It's nice and big, and it's used for just about everything. So if you stick your phone in your car while you're driving, you want to set it there, it works for that. You never have to change phone cases, which is a big deal, but it does take a little bit longer to get that to align perfectly and give you a perfect field of view. You usually have to mess around with it a little bit until you get really, really good at that. But nonetheless, it does take longer than some of these self-aligning options. Now the MagView, I'm sorry, not the MagView, the all-in here, this one is self-aligning, and it works really, really well in that you typically will leave this on, and it doesn't get in the way of using the spotting scope. None of these are going to be completely unnoticed when you're using the spotting scope, but it does a really good job that way. And it is magnetic. The phone case, this is for a Samsung Galaxy. So depending on your phone, you may have a magnetic piece sticking off to the side. I think some of the iPhones do not have that, so it just depends on the location of the camera on your phone. But it is easily used as a landscape mode or portrait mode, however you want to do it. And it's just very, very quick and easy, and I really like that about the all-in system, and it comes off easy. You can take that off, put it in your pack or your bino harness if you want to, or you can leave it on the optic. Now the phone scope here, universal, is just like that. The ScopeCam, and then you got to open that up, get the right fit there, make sure it's big enough there, and then slide it on there and then tighten it down. And then once it's tightened down, you can either use the universal piece here, and then you put that on the piece right there, and then stick that on your optic, or you can use the spotting scope specific piece here, stick it on there, and then go ahead and use your adapter in that way. Now the phone scope with the phone specific case is definitely my preference of those. You've got the adapter that is specific for the spotting scope. You can go ahead and attach that onto the case right there. And then it's pretty easy to go ahead and use that in landscape or pull it off and use that in portrait. Then it does self-align, so it does make that process a lot quicker. Even though it's not magnetic, and it does require leaving that all together with the eyepiece on there if you want to have that pre-aligned and all set up just the way you want it. The case is a little bit bigger though, so it's something to consider. It's bigger than, say, the all-in or the Onglass or the ScopeCam case. It's definitely the biggest of all the cases, if that matters to you. So a couple things to consider there on the alignment, how quick and easy it is to use and set up when you're out in the field. Now the third thing to consider when I'm looking at a digiscoping adapter is the overall functionality of the unit. For me, some of those important things are, do I have the ability to take the adapter and film or take pictures vertically and horizontally? For me personally, that's important. That may or may not be important for you, but if you like to do, say, social media posts as well as video, you want to have the ability to easily change between the two without having to make a whole bunch of adjustments. The other thing is, how well does the adapter stay on the spotting scope if it's supposed to, or how quickly and easy can it be removed and put on if that's the design and the setup. And on that note, for me, the ScopeCam was a little bit more time consuming to put on and get set up here, even though it does very, very securely stay on there, and you can really tighten that down really, really well. It's not overly complicated here or difficult to do so, but you do need two hands to do that, so it does take a little bit longer to get that set up. Now the Onglass is very, very quick and simple. I did really like the way that attached to the spotting scope. That one was very easy and quick to do so. MagView is a little bit more difficult because you do have all these other fitment pieces because it's universal. That's a benefit to the MagView. It's universal. You buy one kit and it's good for just about any spotting scope you might have or get in the future. So that's a big selling point. But it does have all these pieces, so you don't want to lose them, certainly, and the spacers. But it does take some fitting to make that just right, and you do need a tool here, an Allen wrench, to get that fit onto the spotting scope, make sure it fits just right. And then it stays on there. There's not one that's supposed to come off. So you want to get that fitment just right so it doesn't come off on you, and then you have a difficulty of getting it back on and usable when you're out in the field. Now the all-in, again, is very easy to use and put on and off. It's just a press on like that. And then when you have the phone, you can, again, with this one, use vertical and horizontal very quickly and easily, even in the same session if you need to. It's very fast, very easy, and you do have a magnetic cover, which I really do like. I, in using this, have just left this on because it doesn't really impede the use of or give you any more negative experience when using the spotting scope. You can tell it's there a little bit, and I still prefer using it without it, but I typically just go ahead and leave that on. It's worked just fine. Now, as far as use in the field, this universal adapter from PhoneScope is definitely not one that I would really recommend. It just takes too much time to put on there, even though it does work. Kind of the same with the universal adapter from PhoneScope here. It just takes a bit of time to anytime you're dealing with this where you're having to realign everything every time, it takes some time to do that. If time isn't something that really matters that much, then that's no big deal, and it's a little less expensive to go that route. And you don't have to switch when you change phones, which is something that all of these have an issue with if you are going with something that's not universal. So the other option here with PhoneScope is the fitted eyepiece and the fitted case. That's definitely going to give you the most secure option. And again, like we talked about earlier, that's very easy to go from horizontal to portrait there if you want to film both ways. Now the fourth thing that I'm going to consider when I'm looking at all of these is the pros and cons of each of them. I'll go through that very, very quickly here. We've talked about a number of these things. With the ScopeCam, it's heavier. It's made out of metal, not plastic, like pretty much everything else here. So it's a lot heavier, but it's a lot more durable. So it's pros and cons there. It is nice that if you have the ScopeCam system here, you can go ahead and use either the universal system or the one that is specific for your exact phone. So you've got that option. Once you start into their setup, you can grab one of their phone cases and their specific setup or their universal, and you're going to be able to interchange those out very easily. It is a nice setup, but it is a little bit more clunky overall to get it attached, but it is very secure and very, very durable. The Onglass pros and cons here. I did like this. This is the most budget friendly of all of them, certainly, and especially for a fitted style and self-aligning. Now this is laser cut, if I recall correctly, so the cut itself is not quite as precise, so there is a little bit of play in here on some of them, not all of them. So that's one of the downsides, the cons to this, but the price point is excellent, and it does work really well, and it does self-align. You do need to have an extra case because you need to be able to put this magnet on here. But you know, cases are not that expensive, so you can go ahead and do that. Now, one of the downsides to this is that you do have to take this off and realign it if you want to go vertical versus horizontal, or you can just twist it, but that doesn't tend to do too well on the eyepiece of your spotting scope. So a downside is that it's not vertical or portrait or horizontal. It doesn't change as quickly as, say, the all-in. Similarly, I forgot to mention with the ScopeCam, that's kind of the same deal. Once you put this on here and it's on there and attached, you can go ahead and get your do a portrait or horizontal. But if you want to change that, you got to loosen this up, make the switch, and then go ahead and tighten it back down. So it's, again, just not quite as fast to make that change. Now over to the mag view here. It is really nice that it is universal. That's a big selling point for the mag view, and that you don't have to change this out. You don't have to change the unit itself, the eyepiece unit, or your phone case when you switch phones or switch spotting scopes. That's a big seller here. I did grab my spotting scope that this is fitted on right there. And the other nice thing about this is you have a built-in cover for the eyepiece. It just flips open, and then the way that, of course, is used is by attaching it that way. You do have to, again, one of the downsides to this is it does take a bit of practice to get as good at aligning that. And even when you get pretty good at it, it does take a little bit longer than a self-aligning system. So something to consider. It is a little bit bulkier. It's not too bad, but it is something you do need to leave on your spotting scope. So you'd have to be prepared for that. There's the hinge area here is a little bit on the bigger side. So consider that, but it is nice in that regard, especially that the phone case. One of the things I really love about this is that when you're using their mag plate adapter, the magnetic adapter on your phone, it's nice and big. It can be used again when you're in your vehicle or whatnot, driving around. So a good option there. Now going over to the all-in here, you've got a nice magnetic system here that is fitted for your specific spotting scope and your specific phone. And the pros to that is that you can easily and quickly make your change from portrait to landscape when you want to. An included magnetic cover for the spotting scope provides dust protection for the lens of your spotting scope. When it's on there, it's definitely a little bit bigger, as you can see, than some of the other options out there. It's not super streamlined, but it's not overly big either. It's one of these smaller ones, but not the smallest here. The downside to this is that it is very specific to your spotting scope and to your phone. It's a give and take with that. If you want the absolute best performance, that's what you're going to have to give up, is some of that universal aspect to an adapter here. But you also get perfect alignment every time. It's almost instantaneous. You literally don't have to try at all. It just self-aligns the best of all of the units, really, as far as that functionality goes. Now with the pros and cons here of the phone scope, this universal adapter is great. It's inexpensive compared to some of the others, but it's also not that secure. It doesn't work that great. It works, but it just takes a little more work to get everything lined up just right. And then especially if you're using the universal kit here, the universal piece, that it just creates a lot of moving parts that are difficult to get all working together. Now on the plus side, this is less expensive than some of the others. We'll go over the prices really quick in just a moment on all these. But as far as if you want that more secure setup that's still not terribly expensive, this fitted piece is going to be your best option. The case is a little bit on the bulky side. It's more bulky than the ScopeCam. Of course, you can get a scope and put some of these on some of these magnets on any case that you have. But it's definitely more bulky than the all-in as well. But it does work really well, and it very easily slides on and off without having to mess around too much, and the self-alignment is already built into that. So again, the downside to that is it's more expensive than the universal system, but it's something where you do have to also change out the eyepiece and or change out the phone case when you change either spotting scopes or phones. So something to consider there. All right, last but not least, the fifth thing to consider is, of course, the price point. They're all a little bit different, and a pretty big price range difference between all of these to consider. ScopeCam here, the universal kit, which consists of the phone holder here and the eyepiece here. They screw together just like all of the ScopeCam pieces there. That's going to run you $150 as of the filming of this video. Now, if you go with the one that is specific for your phone, which is this guy here, runs at $125. And then if you want their phone case, currently it's $35 as well. So you're going to be a little bit more expensive for their one that is specific for the phone. But I prefer that setup personally. Now, the Onglass here is by far the least expensive, which is really nice. You get a self-aligning kit that is much less expensive than some of the other options out there. You do have to bring your own phone case, so that's not included in the price. So that's part of the reason why it's a little bit less expensive. But the kit consists of the magnetic piece, which there's an alignment process that you go through to put it onto your own phone case, and it goes through that. It's very quick and easy. And then it also comes with the green outer piece and whatever inner piece that you select based on whatever spotting scope you need. It runs about $85, and then you can add some additional inner pieces depending on if you need that or whatnot. So very, very good value there. The MagView is the second most expensive here, coming in at $170. But again, you do get a universal system here that is a nice magnetic system as well. And that includes everything here that you see, except for I had bought some extra mag plates here so that I could use these on multiple phones. And I do like those anyways, even if you're just using them for general phone use. But $170 for that. So definitely on the more expensive side, but well made also. The all-in system here is the most expensive at $175 as of filming this. But it is also the best as far as self-alignment and the options that you have there, and the easiest and fastest to use, I would say, in my experience anyways. The phone scope here, the universal kit here, if you go with the lollipop here and the universal eyepiece, comes in at about $89, and then if you go up to $110 if you select your phone case and a phone or a spotting scope specific eyepiece and a fitted eyepiece there. So definitely also a good value that way. Again, of the phone scopes, this was definitely my preferred option with a fitted case and the fitted eyepiece. So that is the price points of all of these, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you have any experience with any of these, or do you have any questions on how any of these work? Again, we used all of these out in the field, and we're able to get a pretty good feel for how each of them functions in real world conditions. Drop those down in the comments section, and I'll put a link to all of these in the description for you, so if you can check them out for yourself if you would like. Thanks for watching here today, and we will see you next time.